Creo parametric projects for Louis Gary Lamott's textbook. These are downloadable projects that are not included in the book. You have to download from the website or from the publisher website. What we want to do first is we want to go and see where to get our PDF. We go to cadresources.com, www.cad-resources.com. Click on the book that you have. In this case, it's Creo Parametric, and select the lesson projects download. There also is a 3D PDF for all the lessons and the projects, and this has embedded models, PTC models, inside of the PDF. The lesson projects download is a large file, over 100 pages, of the projects that used to be included in the book at the end of every lesson. By taking them out of the text, since they do not change every year, it makes the book smaller and cheaper. So you're going to click on this and download it. It takes a few minutes to do that. I've already downloaded it. And I'm going to start by closing my browser. I can go to the very bottom left-hand corner and do that, or I can just simply click on the close up here. All right, the first thing that you want to do is you want to set your working directory. In this case, I'm going to go to my project folder, and we're on the angle block. So this is the working directory that I want to stay in while I'm doing this project. I'm going to open up the angle block because it's already been modeled, and we're going to go over it. Now, the reason it comes up in kind of an odd position here is that wherever it was saved, that's the way it's going to look. So we want to turn it into trimetric. So we're going to go and click on our standard orientation, and this is the trimetric view of it. Now, I do want to do a few things in the very beginning. Whenever you start a file, you want to go and prepare it, and you want to go into your model properties and check the units. In this case, they're millimeters. If, for instance, they were the default and you modeled it, then this would come up as pound, inch, pound, second. If you want to change it to another type of units, you click on it, click set, and almost every time you're going to want to interpret the dimensions. You're not going to want to convert them. So use the second choice here. And I'm going to close it. Now the other thing you want to look at is your material. In this case, we don't have any material selected. So let's say we wanted to use steel or stainless steel. It doesn't make any difference. We're just practicing on how to do that. So we click on the type and we click on the arrow here, or you can simply double click on the name. And if you double click on the materials in the model, it'll put you into the model definition, and you can see that the different tabs allow you to set up your material file. Many times your company will have their own material files that they load. Click OK, OK again, and close. Now, I could go over to my tools and select model, and it will open up the model information in the browser. And you can see here it shows what the datum planes are, some of the features, but mainly we want to see that it's millimeters, and steel has been selected as the file name. You can make this larger like any browser just by holding down your control key and rolling your middle mouse button. I'm going to go back to my original, which is the first tab here. I've got the textbooks and services tab up here so that we can see the book page. All right, so one of the things we normally like to do is we like to prepare the model in a few different ways. Number one, it's nice to see shading with edges. Also, we have our standard orientation, and you can see you can go to the other orientations, whichever you want. Default and standard are the same, but you can later change the default and save it under a new position. You can also reorient the model, which we won't do right now. Now, one of the things you see here in our quick toolbar, I've got all of mine turned on. Yours may come in with a few of these things turned off, and you can just right click and turn them on if you want to see it. If you don't want to see this at the top here, you can change its location to the right side, and I like to put it in the status bar, which is the very bottom of the screen there, so I don't have to see it very much. It's way down here. We'll keep ours in the standard position just so that we can have it look at as a default. Now, let me cancel this out. Our PDF of the projects, there's 130 pages, and our first one we're going to do is the angle block. It gives you not a set of commands, but just some drawings and information on how to approach it. So we're going to go over and we're going to take a look at how this person did it. Now, one of the things we can do is we can go to our tools, and we can go to the model player. And the model player will play back step by step everything that was created. So we have our datum planes, coordinate system. We have our first feature. I can click on show dimensions. We have our second major feature, which is a cut. And we have our last feature, which is a cut on the top. I'm going to finish this. Now, one of the things you may want to display is, excuse me, all these datum features, but it doesn't give you the datum tags. So under the View tab, you can select the tags to be shown. So now you can see the front, top, and right tag clearly. You can always turn all of these off if you don't want to see anything on the screen. So we're going to roll back our model. I'm going to pick on the insert here and see if I can go back, see if it'll allow me to do it. No, it's not allowing me to do it for some reason. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to take these two features and suppress them. So right mouse button, select them, right mouse button, and then click suppress. Okay. Now they're not shown in the model tree, which is a little bit of a problem. You want to make sure that everything you can is shown in the model tree. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to turn on all of these display features. I tend to turn everything on. Other people, as you get used to using a PTC product, or any CAD system, you'll know what you really want to see, and depending how cluttered you want to make this navigation area. So you can see now it's got a little black dot here, which means that it has been suppressed. So I'm going to go to the very first feature and let's take a look at it. At any time, no matter where you are in a PTC product, in this case Creo, and the old Pro Engineer also, you can click on a feature or a component if you're in the assembly, right mouse button, edit definition. It puts you back into the modeling of that particular feature, and you can see the depth here. You can drag this depth handle if you want, and it's set at 70 because that's the depth of the part. If we want to go deeper into it and see the sketch, click right mouse button, edit internal sketch, and here is our sketch. And if we want to see that in the sketch view, 2D rather than 3D, sometimes it's easier in the very beginning to see it like this. Now these are the dimensions and the lines, entities that we used for this particular part, the first feature, I should say. You will notice that certain things are modeled and certain things are not, or I should say sketched. This is a closed feature. We started right here, and we just simply used the line chain command to create a closed section. If it's done right, it'll turn shaded when you finish it. You click middle mouse button when you've done sketched, and it'll automatically, I'm going to do one over here so that you can see. And if I click my middle mouse button a couple of times, it will shade that. And this has actually one section, but the sketch has got two separate pieces to it, and obviously you don't want to do that. I'm going to window it in and hit my delete key. So One of the things you should notice, we did put this big chamfer on here because it's a large angle cut, so I think it should be included. This is all pretty much adding material. You'll notice I did not put the little cutout in that belongs on the part. And there's a reason for that. That should be a separate feature. The person who modeled it, and we took this screenshot for the PDF for, put it all in one. Now, if an ECO comes along and your company wants to eliminate this notch, you have to go back to the very first feature and change it. And something could be referenced to it, so then you destroy your model and you have to redefine and reorganize it. And you don't want to have to do that. So separate your features. It really would not be incorrect for you to just do this outline and then add a chamfer here. I wouldn't do it over here because of this dimensioning scheme that you want. But in general, this is what we want to do. Now, normally when we're done, we want to go to our standard orientation so that we can see what happens. Right mouse button, OK. And now it'll preview the depth. And of course, when you're modeling it, you're going to have to type in a new depth. You'll probably have a very long part at this point. And here's your depth direction showing. Now, I have to tell you that PTC put out a dot release, a bug fix, and some changes between the first release of this software and then its next version. Not really another version of the software, but just a basic. It's hard to say because the problem is PTC did not just clean up some things. It changed some colors, and you're going to notice what it did here is it actually, I think in the book we call this a yellow, and they've changed it to a different color. So it's a little bit of a problem sometimes when they do that in midstream, but in general it's okay. Now, they're trying to make the software better. I'm going to go back into my 2D section. I'm going to show you another place that in the book it's different. In the book, it'll tell you right mouse button, center line. For some reason, in this version that we just loaded, it says construction center line. So they think that's better, which is fine, but the thing is that they're basically changing things not in a version. Like this is not Creo 2.0, this is Creo 1.0, but it's another dot release of it. So let's go back over our standard orientation, and we're going to come out of this section by clicking OK up here, or right mouse button OK. Middle mouse button or clicking on the check will end this particular command and initiate the feature. So we had sketched on the front datum, and it extrudes out along the z-axis basically. I'm going to resume this next feature, which is the cut down the middle. And again, at any time you can click on the feature, right mouse button, edit definition, and it'll go back into the preview of the feature. So you're now displaying the cut direction. And again, these arrows used to be yellow, now they're kind of a magenta. And they show which direction of the cut is going. So you want to make sure it's cutting through the object and it's cutting up. If you flip one of these, then there's not going to be the shape that you want. Obviously, it's going to cut the outside, leave the inside. And we can go into the section, right mouse button, edit internal sketch, or we can click on placement, edit. It's basically the exact same thing. I prefer the right mouse button. And we'll see that we put in just a simple rectangle. I'll go to the 2D view. And I think I'll shut off my shading and put on hidden line. It's a little harder to see though because the edges here are in the color of the model. If you leave the default color on, then what will happen is you'll see these darker. So let's go back and turn this back on. So we're using the left-hand edge as a reference and the bottom as a reference. Simply right mouse button, corner rectangle, pick two positions, and then add the appropriate dimensions. When you put in a feature, it doesn't necessarily put in the correct dimensioning scheme that you want. So let's put in another one here. So you can see this one dimensioned from over there, and then you have your width and your height, and those are okay. But this one here, I would have to change that dimensioning scheme and go from the reference over to the edge if I really wanted it dimensioned like that. I'm going to undo. So we want to keep this one on here. And standard orientation, middle mouse button, or go to the OK up here. I'm sorry, that one you have to go to the OK. Middle mouse button here when you have a preview, and it'll finish it. Now the last one is a little bit different. We have a cut going in another direction. And I think I'm going to start from scratch on that one, so I'm going to suppress it again. I can sketch on this face and cut this way. I can sketch on this face and cut this way. Or I can sketch on the datum plane and cut through the part. The best one is using the datum plane. It's the first feature. It's way up here. So we're not referencing any other geometry. At first we're referencing a datum plane. In this case, it's the right datum plane. So select Extrude, right mouse button, remove material, or simply click here. Right mouse button, define internal sketch, or placement define. The sketch has not been positioned or placed, so you want to select the datum plane. And this arrow here is only the direction of viewing. And this is okay, we're going to view in this direction. Really does not make any difference. But when you click on sketch and then go into your sketch view, what will happen is you can now see very clearly that this is one of my references. This dash line, here's another reference. So those references are where the dimensions are going to come from. We need some other references though. So right mouse button, references, or click in the ribbon. And we're going to select the top edge, it's really a surface, and the side. Now I won't take the side. I'm going to rotate this, and I'm going to pick here. If you get the wrong one, for instance, let's say you get this one here. It doesn't really hurt to have an extra reference. And you can always delete the one that you don't want by clicking on it and deleting it, like so. So we do want this one along here. Close. And I'm going to go into my 2D sketch view, make it a little bit easier. Now I'm simply going to select corner rectangle, and because I've got a reference here and a reference on the bottom, middle mouse button, you'll see that it automatically will give the dimension to that reference, and there's no dimension for the depth because we selected this face here, this surface, as the other reference. Now here you can change the dimensions as you need. You can actually pull them a little bit. I'm going to leave them like they are. And we'll go default right mouse button OK, or click OK in the ribbon. You can see it's going in the wrong direction. So I'm going to click on the arrow and make it go in this direction. If I put my cursor over the top of this little drag handle, right mouse button, I can then say to next, to selected. How about to selected? And then I'm going to select this face right here. So here we have our options. Take a look at it. To select it. We could also go through all here, or we can actually select these things right in the ribbon. So there's three places that we can get to these choices, these options for the depth. Now I didn't make the dimensions correct on this. So if I double click here, I can actually change these dimensions right on the model. I can't remember what they were, but I think they were 20 and 25, like so. And regenerate the model. And then we have our component. I'm going to delete that one. It's interesting, I'm getting a ghost of my arrow here. That has to be a bug of the software. I'm going to resume my cut, and there's my model. Now, the one thing that you might want to do is you might want to come in, and you should maybe have done it in the beginning, depending on how you like to work on the project. You might want to go in and you might want to see some shading with reflections. I think they did this because of another software package. I'm not sure what it's worth. And the other thing is you might want to go to the View tab and go and change your model color. If you don't like the color, you can come right mouse button and edit and select the color itself. Some colors you should stay away from. Any color that they're using for highlighting or for selection purposes you should avoid. And if you want to change the highlight color in this case, you can do that also. And you can change the transparency too. Sometimes when it's a complicated part, it's nice to have the transparency on a little bit, not too much, just so you can see the internal features. This ends your first project for the book, the angle block.